You and I left a good life behind a long time ago, my friend.
It's not only the best action film of 2023, it might be the best action film of the decade. John Wick Chapter 4, I saw it last night. It's pretty freaking good. Today I'm gonna review it and I'm gonna try not to spoil it too much for you. I saw the posters around the city, so I was well aware of the film coming out this year. But after the second film, I didn't really pay attention to the trilogy, well, to the franchise at this stage. That's why I couldn't care less about the third one. I haven't seen it. I have watched like a recap of the third one in order to understand the fourth one. So my expectations were very low. To my surprise, the cinema was almost full and it was one of the best screening experience I've ever been to. No one moved for the entirety of 3 hours. The film is almost 3 hours long. No one wanted to miss a single second of that film.
Saying goodbyes.
Saying hello.
There's not many films that actually make me sort of change the way I see the entirety of the genre. This is one of those films where you can actually feel and taste the budget. Everything screams money in that film. You know how sometimes you watch the film and you find out the budget and you're like, what the hell? Every sequence, every scene, everything just screams money. All the films that spent $200 million, I have no idea what they spent it on. Because if John Wick Chapter 4 can spend 100 million and produce something like that, then oh my god, we should have films about space more often. And okay, spoiler alert. Despite me praising this film so much, I have a list of issues with that as well, which I'm gonna get into. Why does that film work? There's so many of those juxtapositions of brutality and softness, of tradition and just like chaos. Stakes that just make sense, very human. Throughout the entirety of the film, it's really hard to differentiate and tell apart what's VFX and what's the stunt work. I could not tell what was what. The whole film loves to play with this orange-red color palette. That's why the film is stunning. It's definitely a film that you want to see on the big screen. Don't watch it on the laptop. Despite it being so dark, there's so much killing, so much death. The orange tone really like almost hugs it, really helps the film to stay warm and positive. In terms of music, so you have this constant epic orchestral music in the background, and then you have elements of the house and techno. That's why the whole film felt like one big party. There's again so much fighting and dying, but it still felt like a choreography. In dance, you practice and you put so much work into mastering a single move. You really can feel the amount of hours that every single one of those actors and stuntmen put into this film. Like the experience of watching that film felt like visiting opera or ballet. It was like a spectacle. Like I was captured by the way the camera moved. You can really feel the directors and the cinematographers like passion and deep understanding of martial arts, of the guns, of the way bullets explode and the way the human body reacts to a punch, and really having camera work with the movement rather than movement work with the camera. It really made me think that this film managed to unmask the illusion of filmmaking in a way because of how unobstructive the camera was, and you couldn't feel that the filmmaker is trying to trick you. Obviously the film moves a lot. We're in New York, we're in Berlin, we're in Paris, we're in Japan. Stuntmen and all the actors continuously used every furniture, every wall, every piece of monument, everything that was in the frame was there to be used. It was really well designed and planned out. An example would be the stairs to Sacré-Cœur, and I climbed those stairs. The fact that John Wick managed to climb it not once but twice and actually fight his way up there, it was genius. nods to other franchises. But yeah, having not seen the last one, and I actually completely forgot that Lawrence Fishburne was in it, I actually had shivers down my spine, like watching those two on the screen. It gives you huge nods to Matrix, and call me crazy, but I think that was very carefully placed there to just give that a little nod. And to support that claim, I've spotted another reference to a franchise, which I might be just biggest fan on earth. Kane, portrayed by the amazing Donnie Yen, we know from Rogue One. Donnie Yen is actually not blind in real life. Him showing what he can do with all his skill set, and once again acting to be blind for the second time on the film. I don't think that's a coincidence. I really feel like they reprised that role again. They reprised the similar role of the character that we loved, and it was really awesome thing to see. He was this new character who had enough of connections with all those different characters, and he still managed to maintain his own thing. Very often when you're introduced to a new character so late in the franchise, the character development just really feels flat. Kane had enough of motives and enough of things at stake that his presence there was completely justified, and he quickly becomes one of your most favorite characters on the screen. So Bill Skarsgård, aka Marquise. We know him from being our Pennywise. So just as with Kane, he's the new character added very late into the franchise. He's so terrifying. So like he really gave me those glimpses of Pennywise here and there, but also he managed to just be this arrogant, slappable, like you really wanted to slap him, representation of the table. And he wasn't the table, so that was really cleverly used. So instead of the franchise placing itself in a position where they have to reveal the members of the table, I really liked how they maintained the secrecy. The German dude, Killer, played by Scott Adkins, who was pretty much unrecognizable. He had a very short role, but he was one of the most effective and, again, one of the best freaking villains I saw on the screen in a long time. The Tracker, Mr. Nobody. So, okay, he had a dog, so there is this. Check for the element of the dog for John Wick. His presence felt very flat. Originally, I know they were meant to do John Wick 4 and 5, so I think there was a lot more to the character. We don't know much about him. In some situations, the secrecy aspect works, but that guy was so charismatic, and there was clearly so much more to him that I wish I have seen a little bit more. But yeah, I should have talked about John Wick himself. Like, so Keanu Reeves, it's very difficult to stay unbiased when talking about anything to do with Keanu Reeves, but promised myself to be honest and fair. Here it is. Here is my unbiased opinion about Keanu Reeves. When you watch those stunt fight sequences, or, you know, shootouts or car drifting and everything, like, you know that it's Keanu doing all that. And I have so much admiration and respect for that level of dedication, same as with Tom Cruise. What I had a problem with was, why was he speaking so slow, and why were his lines really debased to short responses? So there were all different kinds of conversation happening around him, but it's almost like he didn't have too much to say. I had this theory that maybe because of the events of the third one, like something might have happened to him, like dropped out of the building one too many times. Keanu action scenes, amazing, great, but his acting, or like maybe not his acting, because his acting is there, like he is a great actor who can actually translate a lot of emotions, and his facial expressions can give you a lot without him actually saying words. But I wish there was just a little bit more. The action sequences are stellar, and I think Keanu Reeves did a fantastic job at everything. Everything he does. He was pretty good. I really liked how the film finished in this Western style. So after 2.5 hours of a constant explosions and shootouts and dying people and everything, that scene felt so emotionally heavy, because you had two honorable friends who were doing just what they were forced to rather than what they wanted to do. There was something like really tragic about watching two people try to kill each other without actually wanting to kill each other. The whole scene was just so loaded with this principle, brotherhood, love, friendship in the name of the greater good. And it was so heavy that it didn't have the emotional hook of the first one. Killing John Wick's puppy was pretty freaking traumatic experience, but it felt equally important and equally difficult to witness. It's quite fascinating that after 2.5 hours of constant action, we were able to slow down, and it felt like just what it was meant to happen with the finale. But let's talk about the bad things. I've already mentioned the script. We had a lot of lines that just landed flat. We had great cast, but they even couldn't do much with the script. The script was just not well written. The scenarios or like the events were well placed, but what actors had to say was just generic, flat, boring. I'm trying to think of more adjectives. Number 2, all the freaking landmarks of Paris. Let's do the Popindu Center. Let's do Sacré-Cœur. Let's meet at the Eiffel Tower. Seriously? This guy is French. Not a single Frenchman would propose to meet at any of those landmarks. I wish they actually showed those less known locations to explore Paris a little bit more. It was just a bit of a miss with me. I also wish stuntmen were giving 100% in their acting abilities as much as actors were. A lot of stuntmen just like taking all those really crazy brutal hits and doing the worst possible job at acting out the pain. Speaking of which, there was about 1 million scenarios where not only stuntman but John Wick himself should have died. He entered God mode and he was just like doing everything throughout the whole film and being able to survive and sustain any injury, any fall, any hit. Like it felt over the top at times. So no amount of intoxication in your body can prevent you from witnessing what's happening around you, like people literally killing each other right next to you. But yeah, you'll just keep dancing. And you know, the techno, the rave was like the best thing to witness, and visually it looked stunning. But in reality, come on, like you would have noticed that something is happening right next to you and you wouldn't just continue on dancing. To summarize it all, I loved how John Wick Chapter 4 ended. I think it was a great finale. Really love how the film managed to give the right circumstances and the perfect setup to some of our favorite characters from franchises such as, you know, Star Wars, The Matrix. Like celebrate the characters that we wish we've seen more of. It was a fictional film, but it had managed to keep those human responses. Everything that was happening had real stakes, real people, like real emotions added to it. It felt logical, beautifully orchestrated and, you know, choreographed, very well planned film, which also regarded human emotions, human stakes, and just like some grounds of reality in it. And I think that's why it works. I think that's the recipe for the action film. You cannot just give us special effects and the, you know, greatest action scenes if there is no emotional or human element to it. If you think about it in the retrospective, that's how John Wick got us in the first place. Like in the first film, we had the dog element that was like big enough hook that everyone was able to relate to, and that's what worked, and that's what worked in the John Wick. What makes John Wick Chapter 4 one of the best action films of probably this decade, and I keep saying this because I truly believe it, is the fact that they've managed to not only maintain that human element, but really push the envelope in the fight sequences, in car chases, in the martial arts. Every single one of those elements gives you something that you haven't seen before. So well executed that I'm genuinely speechless to why it even works. I'm baffled. I'm speechless about something that I was most convinced it's going to fail me. it leaves me with a lot of faith for action genre, and it really shows all those movies that rely on the green screen and having, you know, a great actor attached to it, like a great name attached to it, that you don't need to feed the audience a constant fodder of nonsense and repetition and hide between this argument that, oh, it's so hard to come up with anything new. Because if John Wick has managed to do it, not only in the first John Wick, but in the fourth one, like this year, then what are we doing, people? That's what actually is gonna make people want to come to cinema. Bittersweet, the saga's over, but it's ended on the right note. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments, what did you think? Subscribe to our channel. Okay, bye everyone.
You want to kill him? You want to kill him? I want to kill him. What about you, Mr. Vic?